William Wordsworth, born in England in 1770, he also started to work with Samuel Taylor in 1793. William Wordsworth introduced Romanticism to English poetry. At the end of 18th century, he also made Romantic movement with English literature. At 1843, William Wordsworth became a famous English poet. In 1795, William Wordsworth allowed to stay with his younger sister. At the same year, he also get an opportunity to meet with Samuel Taylor. They both became a very good friends. They both also worked on lyrical ballads. Lyrical ballads contain a lot of poems. After they published lyrical ballads, William Wordsworth started to work on prelude. While he was working on prelude, he also published a poem which is Lucy. Besides that poem, he also wrote a lot of poetry, including the famous poetry I Travel Alone as a Cloud. He also helped the Romantic season take hold in English poetry. William Wordsworth's mother passed away when he was just 7 years old, and he became an orphan at the age of 13 years old. After that loss, he began his studies in a grammar school, the place where he started to write his first poem. He also furthered his studies in Cambridge University. After that, he went to France at the year of 1790. He went to France as a supporter to the new government. In France, he met with Vallon, and they both fall in love each other at the year of 1793. But unfortunately, the declaration of war between England and France had already separated them. When William Wordsworth grew up, he started to reject radicalism. In 1813, he started to work as a post distributor. Although he produced a lot of poetry, he can still reach his creativity level. And at last, at 1843, he became an English poet. One summer evening, I found a little boat tied to a willow tree within a rocky cove, its usual home. Straight, I unloosed her chain and stepping in pushed from the shore. It was an act of stealth and troubled pleasure, nor without the voice of mountain echoes did my boat move on, leaving behind her still or either side, small circle glittering idly in the moon, until they melt all into one track, or sparkling light, but now, like one who rose, proud of his skill, to reach a chosen point, with an unswelling line, I fixed my view upon the summit of craggy ridge, the horizon's utmost boundary. Far above was nothing but the stars and the grey sky. She was an elfin pinnace, lustily. I dipped my oars into the silent lake, and I rose upon the stroke, my boat. When having through the water like a swan, when from behind the craggy step till then.
The horizon's bound, a huge peak, black and huge, as if with voluntary power instinct. Appear its head, I struck and struck again, and growing still in stature, the grim ship towered up between me and the stars, and it still. For so it seemed with purpose of its own, and measure motion like a living thing. Strode after me, with trembling oars I turned, and through the silent water stole my way, back to the covert of the willow tree. There, in her mooring place, I left my bark, and through the meadows homeward went, in grief. And serious mood, but after I had seen that spectacle for many days, my brain worked with a dim and undetermined sense of unknown modes of being all o'er my thoughts. There hung a darkness, called it solitude, or blank decision, no familiar shapes. Remain no present images of trees, or sea or sky, no colors of green fields, but huge and mighty forms that do not live, like living men, move slowly through the mind by day and were a trouble to my dreams. Good evening. My name is Shatis. I and my partner Suhaima will be doing the topic of the poem The Prelude, which is written by William Wordsworth. So, basically, in my part, I will be covering the summary of this poem. So, this poem consists of 44 lines and there are no stanza in this poem. It is quite long, which is one of the best work from William Wordsworth. Before we go lines by lines, I'll be covering the background of this poem, where this poem talk about the narrator finds a boat and he untied the boat and went for a ride at the lake. So during his ride, he found many beautiful things where he observed the nature and so on. But when he go further and further, there is a mountain which look so scary and which make narrator feel scared, and he just turn away. He don't want the ride to be continued. But once he turn away and he just go on at one point, he start to realize, and that's what the poem talks about. Yes. So basically, the first line is mostly the introduction of this poem. So the poem starts with the introduction of the first line, which is, one summer evening, led by her, I found a little boat tied to a willow tree. This means that the narrator finds a boat which is tied under a tree. The word her is a personification of the boat. Later on, within a rocky cove, its usual home. Straight, I unloosened her chain and stepping in. This means that within a cave, between the cave, there's a tree and there's a lake. The narrator untie or unloosen the chain of the boat and he start to step the boat and have a ride towards the lake. Pushed from the shore, it was an act of stealth and troubled pleasure nor without the voice. At one point, the narrator feel that it was a act of stealth because he take the boat without permission, but it doesn't care for him because he feel that after a ride on the boat, he feel that there's nothing to feel guilty because he just want to observe the nature of the lake. Of mountain echoes did my boat move on. Later on, leaving behind her still on either side, which means after having a ride, he stopped for a while the boat and he see that there's nature everywhere around him. Small circles glittering idly in the moon. In here, William Wordsworth used metaphor to describe the moon, which is beautiful and have a positive image of the moon, until they melted all into one thread, of sparkling light, but now like one who rose. Proud of his skill to reach a chosen point. At here, the narrator felt proud and also at the same time he was arrogant because he found a success where he find a lot of beautiful nature that he can observe. With an unswerving line, I fix my view upon the summit of a craggy ridge. At here, the narrator feels that he found success and he was proud that he still the boat and the views of the nature at the side. Later on, the horizon's utmost boundary fought both, which means there is the mountain which is the appearance is very shocking. Was nothing but the stars and the grey sky. He looked above the sky and he found that it's already night because there is stars and the sky is becoming grey. She was an elfin penis, lustily. In here, particularly this line, William Wordsworth used metaphor to describe the boat. He do a contrast between when he found the boat at the beginning and now. Before the beginning, he found the boat was so rusty and was so old because it was untied and to change. But when he bring out to the lake And when it was night, the stars started to shine a lot, and he found that the boat become turned into like a magical boat because of the shining and the glowing star, which make the boat become make more beautiful. I dipped my oars into the silent lake, and as I rose upon the stroke, my boat went having through the water like a swan. At here, William used simile, which described the water as calm and also graceful with the sound of nature. When from behind the crags steep till then, the horizon bounds a huge peak, black and huge. At here, this is the turning point of the poem. The first 20 lines that I described that is just the beginning or the introduction or just the to describe the nature that the narrator feel. But here is the turning point where we can see that the narrator started to feel a bit scared or nervous after seeing the mountain, which become more, which the appearance of the mountain become, approaching nearer and nearer to him. I'll go on. As if voluntary power instinct appeared its head, appeared its head, I struck and struck again, which means that the mountain that he saw, it was struck again and again whenever he think about it. And growing still in stature, the grim shape tower up between me and the stars, and still, for so it seemed with purpose of its own, and measure motion like a living thing. This means that the measure motion like a living thing is simile which describes the mountain seems alive and approaching him, which the narrator feel even more scarier and scattered. Strode after me, with trembling oars I turned, and through the silent waters stole my way. That means it was so silent where only you can hear the water sound, which even make him more scary and scarier. Back to the covert of the willow tree. At here, after he find that the mountain seems to be so shocking and trembling, he started to turn over his boat, and he just walk away. He just ride away, and back to the destination where he untied his boat. There in her mooring place, I left my bark, and through the meadows, homeward went in grief. After leaving the boat, he found that the effect on him after he left the boat, like the impact become more serious for him because he started to realize that there is something hidden between the mountain that he saw and serious mode. But after I had seen that spectacle for many days my brain, that impact when he saw the mountain, it gave him a strong impact towards his memory, and it's still haunting him. Work with a dim and undetermined sense of unknown modes of being or my thoughts, which means he doesn't understand what he has seen, and he can't really describe what he wants to describe. There hung a darkness called solitude or blank desertion, no familiar shapes. This is the metaphor which the narrator feel that he felt alone and unsettled. Remain no present images of trees, or sea or sky, no colors or green fields, but huge and mighty forms that do not live. Which means that even though in the ride he saw many beautiful things like the flowers or the water or the sky, but that memories didn't give him an impact. But the impact that gave him is the mountain, which is still haunting him and haunting him. Like living men, move slowly through the mind by day and were a trouble to my dreams. This means that the haunting become more serious for him, and he can't get settled with the image that he get. So he finished it with the conclusion that it was an unsettling image. So this is in the final line. This is the contrast between the beginning of the line and also the ending of the line, which means it showed the contrast that before he saw the mountain, he was overjoyed with nature and he observed the nature very happily. But after he saw the mountain, the total mood of him had become to shrink down, and it become more and more give him a negative impact to the mountain, because the mountain seems to be scary and have dull mood for him. And because of the height and the power of it, because of the size, it feels that the mountain overpower him through his sense of his ability to see and observe the nature. But I can give you the overall thing that what the narrator can feel, that after he turned away, that the image of the mountain still haunting him, but he see it in a negative way, because he feel guilty, or his view started to change, because he didn't feel that he observed the mountain just same like how he observed the nature, like the flower and also the water. So this give him, and he can't find peace between him and that image of the mountain still haunting him and haunting him. So I will go on with themes, but there are only two themes, which are the nature and also the loneliness. The nature, we talk about why the theme is nature is here, because mostly the poem is talking about overall about the nature and how we observe nature and how we describe the nature in our way. At here, William, in the first 20 line, William talk positive about nature, whether he can see beautiful skies, stars, the moon. But when come to the mountain, he give a negative image to the mountain. That's same like, just like us. Sometimes we see nature in a bad way. We can't. Sometimes we blame the nature also, especially like the earthquake, the tsunami. Why don't we think that the nature is so upset of us? Because what we do also is quite disgrace to the nature. Sometimes because we do open burning, we do pollution, we don't respect the nature, that what we deserve, and that's what the nature give us back to us, where they repay back with earthquakes, tsunamis, and more on to go. The second thing is about the loneliness. Throughout this poem, the narrator seems to be alone. So the theme of the loneliness is where that when a person become lonely, he can think clearly and wisely, because when a person is alone, many things start to pop up to its mind, and then that he can realize, or he can think something that why why he doesn't do that, why he must do this, why, a lot of things will appear into his head. So the theme of loneliness gives us that everything should be think wisely and clearly before we make an assumption or judgment, just like what the narrator did, where he, because of the mountain, he just assumed it as a bad and give him a bad vibe to him. But when he turned away, when he keep his boat at the tree, and he started to walk away, and he start to change view, that why don't he observe the mountain just like how he observed the nature. So that's why I say that the theme of loneliness make an impact towards the poem and also towards people's life. So in conclusion, that's the summary of this poem. So thank you.